particular mathematical functions that we are talking of. So the mathematical functions that basically we are talking of, they so in the SQL, these particular mathematical functions, they allow you so that of course you can be able to perform various mathematical operations on the numerical values that basically you have in your data. So these functions, they can actually be used so that you can be able to compute the mathematical expressions. Things like maybe rounding the numbers, calculating the trigonometric values, yeah, and more, things like that. So those are the particulars that you can be able to have when you are actually dealing with mathematical functions. So in the mathematical functions, these are some of the particular functions that we will look at. We look at the Ceil, get to look at the random, get to look at things like the Setseed. We'll also get to look at the round, and of course also the power. Yeah. So those are the particulars that we will be looking at in the so those are the particulars we'll be looking at in the mathematical functions. Yeah. So so some of the things also that we'll also look at in the mathematical functions are things like maybe how we can be able to find an absolute value. Yeah, an absolute value. We'll also get to look at things like maybe in terms of the floor, we'll also look at, the Ceil, we'll also look at also the floor. We'll also look at the floor. We'll also get to look at things like maybe the power. Yeah, we mentioned that. Round, we mentioned that. We'll get to look at things like how we can be able to find maybe a square root. Yeah, a square root. We'll also get to look at how we can be able to find maybe an expression. Yeah, an expression. Yeah, so an expression. We'll also get to look at things like logarithmic, yeah, the logarithms. Yeah, so those are the particulars that we look at when you're looking at these particular mathematical functions. Yeah, so those are actually the things that we will actually be covering tomorrow, so that of course you can get to understand the particular mathematical functions or the mathematical the mathematical functions that we have with MySQL. You can be able to see my screen. So let's just have a new SQL file here. So just give this a name and call it mathematical functions. Yeah, so let's have that in that manner. So so the first thing that we'll get to look at in the mathematical functions is just a minute. Yeah, so these are the particular functions that you're going to look at in the mathematical functions in SQL. So we look at the Ceil, the random, the Setseed, the round, and the power. So yeah, so those are the particulars that you're going to have a look at. So let's first of all get to look at the first thing. So get to understand what are these particular mathematical functions in SQL. Then of course we will also get to look at what are the Ceil, the random, and so on. So mathematical functions in SQL, basically, we say that in MySQL specifically, mathematical functions, they are functions that are built in, they are built-in functions actually. So they allow us, or they allow you to be able to perform the various mathematical operations on numeric values. So these particular functions, they can actually be used so that we can be able to manipulate and calculate and also to transform the numerical data within the SQL queries. So let's get to look at this particular mathematical function. So of course, these are not the ones that I've actually indicated are not the only mathematical functions. We'll try to begin with the most basic mathematical functions. Like, for example, we have got the this particular mathematical functions, the Ceil. So the Ceil function, or the ceiling function, it actually returns for us the smallest, the smallest integer after the smallest integer that is actually greater than or equal to a particular, like for example, maybe x, So it will actually return for us the smallest integer, which is actually greater than or equal to x. So like for example, let's have this. So we have got the Ceil function. So we can be able to say that select, Ceil, Ceil. I love it when it's this way, Ceil. Then of course I'll just give like maybe 10.5. In that manner, let me just so when I actually execute this, the number which is actually greater than, or which is actually greater than or this particular, it's actually 11. So my output of this particular statement here in SQL should actually give me an 11. Let me execute this. So you can be able to see that the answer given here is actually 11. So that's actually the Ceil in that manner. The random. So the random actually, it returns for us the random floating. It returns for us the random floating point value that is actually between 0 and 1. So that's actually what the random actually gives us. So it will return for us a random value, which is actually a floating point between 0 and 1. So how can we be able to run? So can be able to run the random in this manner. So we can be able to say like the random So we can be able to say that, so the random, actually we use the rand, so that of course you can be able to say to use it. So of course you can say like select rand, then of course we'll, it doesn't take any particular, arguments. Of course it's just left that way. So of course when I execute this, it will actually give me a particular random floating point between 0 and 1. So 0.44 8, like that. So that's of course how we use the random. So we also have got the Setseed. So in terms of the Setseed, we use the Setseed, so of course we can be able to set a particular seed. Basically what the Setseed does for us is so that of course for the reproducibility purposes, we can be able to generate or have the same results generated over and over. So that's actually why we have got the set seed. So basically we can say, like, for example, let's say that we want to have the Setseed function. So just say that in the Setseed as there are some other database systems, like maybe if you are using the Postgres, yeah, and so on. So you can actually be able to set the seed. So say that the round which we've just talked of previously, of course it produces for us the the rand function. It generates for us the random floating point values. Yeah, we say that is actually between 0 and 1. So by actually providing a seed value to the rand, you actually you can produce a repeatable sequence of random numbers. So this is actually very useful, especially when you're generating or when you're actually generating a reproducible random data, or for the purposes of actually debugging. So like, for example, let's see how we can be able to use the let's see how we can be able to use the Setseed. So we can say that we can set a seed in this manner. So in terms of setting a seed, you'll actually just give, like, maybe select, then rand, then of course we'll set a seed like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. That's actually the seed that we've set. So I'll just go ahead and execute this particular. Then the next thing, I'll now generate random numbers using the same seed that I'd actually created. So I'll just say, so generate random numbers with random numbers using the same seed that it actually created. So I'll just say, like, select rand So let me execute this so that actually will go ahead and generate for me some random numbers. So of course, you can be able to see the particular numbers that have actually been generated. That one, 0.07, 0.03, 0.96 in that manner. So basically what this does, we have got the sequence of the rand that has actually been given here. So this particular sequence of the rands, the randoms that have actually been given here, they will reproduce, or they will actually produce the same sequence of random numbers. If you omit the seed value, or you actually provide a different seed value, you can get actually different sequence of random numbers. So that's actually what happens. So keep in mind that the rand function in this particular session is specific to only this session. Yeah. So if you actually want to generate a reproducible random numbers across different sessions or queries, you actually need to set the value at the beginning of each session, or maybe query where you actually want to use the particulars. So that's actually what happens in the randoms. So the next bit of it is actually the round. So the round actually is just for rounding off. Yeah. So in terms of rounding off, we can be able to round off maybe to a given number of decimal place. So actually it rounds a particular digit or a particular number to, let's say like maybe a given number of decimal places. So if actually the number of decimal places is actually meted, it defaults to 0. So for example, like let's look at, like for example, let's look at this. So let's say like we want to round off, like for example, select round, yeah, select round. Then I will give like maybe let's say a digit like 2. Yeah, 2.567656 that you want to basically round it off to maybe to 2 decimal places. Yeah, let's say for example to two decimal places. So that basically should give us like 2.77. Yeah, 2.77. So so this actually the last one here, we are just specifying to how many decimal places we want to round off to. So of course when I run this, particular, you can be able to see that the rounded off digit is 2.77 in that manner. So that's actually how we can be able to round off. We can be able to round off that manner. Yeah, we have got the power function. So the power function basically it takes into arguments or parameters in it. So we have got the number, and of course there's also the one that is actually the power that we are raising it to. So we have got the numerical expression and the power. Yeah, like for example, raise 2 to the power of 3. That is actually 2 cubed. So 2 to the power of 3. Yeah, so that's actually what we have with the power. So that's actually the syntax of the power. So in terms of the power, basically it returns for us that particular number which has been raised to a given value. So for example, let's say that you want to get to look at how we can be able to raise a given number to power. So we can use the power function. So let's say like maybe select power. Yeah, power in that manner. Then let's say that we want to raise 2 to the power of 3. That manner. So that is actually will give us 8 because 2 actually raised power 3 is 2 times 2 times 2, which is basically 8. So let me run this so that you can see that the output of that particular. So when you run that, you can be able to see that the power of 2 to the power of 3 is basically 8 in that part. So that's actually what you have in the power function. So after the power function, the next function that we have is, okay, that brings us to the end. But of course, there's still some other functions that we can be able to look at. Those are not the only ones. We have got other functions like we have got the absolute, yeah. Absolute. So basically the absolute, what it gives us is we can be able to return the absolute value of a particular, the absolute of a particular value. So like, for example, we can say that give me the absolute of maybe a particular value. So select the absolute is given as the ABS, the absolute of maybe, let's say, -4. Yeah. So the absolute of -4, basically it should just be 4 because the absolute values does not regard it doesn't regard the negative bit of it. So when you execute this particular, you can be able to see that the absolute of -4 is 4 in that manner. So that's actually in terms of the absolute function. We also have got another function called, so we have got another function called the floor. So just the same way in which we have got the Ceil, we also have got the floor. So the floor, it returns for us the largest integer less than or equal to x. Yeah. The other one was actually giving us which is greater than or equal to x. That is the Ceil. But the floor gives us the largest integer, which is less than or equal to x. Like for example, so we're talking here of the floor function. So let's say, like for example, let's say that we want to have the floor of a particular value. So we'll say like select floor. Select the floor of the value, let's say like maybe 10.5. So when I execute this particular one, you can be able to see that the answer that we get is a 10, yeah, in that manner. So that's actually the particular answer that we get. Not sure if you guys have been able to. Yeah, so that's actually the particular answer that we get for this, for the floor function. We also have got the square, the square root function. So the square root function, it returns for us the square root of a particular number. So we have got the square root function. So the square root function, we can be able to say select SQRT, that is the square root of, like, let's say maybe the square root of 16. Yeah. So when you run this particular one, the square root of 16 is 4, and 4 is actually the answer that we get in that one. Yeah, so that of course we have that. We also have got raising a particular number to maybe raising the exponential to a particular power. Yeah, like for example, finding the exponential of 1. So as an exponential function, so we'll say like exponential. So like for example, exponential, for example, we can say select the exponential. So exponential is given by exp, and then of course, let's say like maybe the exponential of 1. Yeah. So in this particular manner, we'll actually have the exponential of 1, which is basically 2.7. So let's run this particular so that we can be able to find it. Yeah, 2.718, yeah, and so on and so forth. Apart from the exponential, we also have got the logarithmic, the log function, logarithm. So like we can be able to get the logarithm of 10. Yeah, so we have got logarithm, log function. So like, for example, find me the log of 10. So I'll just say, like maybe select log, yeah, for the log function, the log of 10, in that manner. So when I execute this particular, you can be able to see that the log that I get here is 2.30 and so on and so forth. So that's actually the particular of how we can be able to find the log. We can also have the log to the base of 10. Basically, the log to the base of 10, like let's say maybe select log to the base of 10, yeah? So we're actually doing the log to the base of 10, you say log 10, yeah? And then you give the particulars, like let's say log to the base of 10 over 100. So this actually should just give us like 2. So when you run this, you can be able to see that 2 is the particular answer, because 2 raised to 10 raised to 10 squared is basically 100. So the logarithm of 100 to the base of 10 is 2 in that manner.